Folks, I want you to take a second and just listen, really listen. I spent a long time in public service, more years than I care to admit sometimes, and I've seen the best of us, and frankly, I've seen some of the toughest moments our country has ever faced. But what's happening right now in the halls of the White House is different. It's a kind of chaos that doesn't just stay in Washington. It trickles down to your kitchen table. It affects how you feel when you wake up in the morning and wonder if the folks in charge actually have your back. Before we get into the heart of what's going on, I want to ask you to do something. If you believe, like I do, that we need a little more honesty and a lot more heart in our politics, I want you to join us. Subscribe to this channel and become a member. Consider joining the fight for the soul of this nation. We need to stick together because the truth is getting harder and harder to find these days. And I don't want you to have to look for it alone. Now, look at what's hitting the news right now. You've probably seen the headlines about why the president is under so much scrutiny all of a sudden. It's not just one thing, it's a pattern. We're seeing a viral, deep dive report from Vanity Fair that pulls back the curtain on what's really going on behind those closed doors in the West Wing, and at the same time, there's this massive push in the House to finally release the unredacted documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. It's a lot to take in, I know. But when you see these stories together, they tell a story of a government that's more worried about its own image than it is about being straight with you. It's about transparency, or the lack of it. This is about whether the people we trust with the highest offices in the land are actually worthy of that trust. I've always believed that the American people can handle the truth, no matter how tough it is. What they can't handle is being kept in the dark while the people in power play games. You know, there's a phrase people use, the buck stops here. I had a sign like that on my desk. It means you take responsibility. But when you read this new report about the inner workings of this administration, it feels like the book is being passed around like a hot potato. They're talking about Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, and the picture she paints isn't one of a team working for the American family. It sounds more like a pressurized cooker where everyone is looking over their shoulder. The report uses some pretty tough language. It describes the president's personality in ways that, frankly, are hard to hear. They talk about an alcoholic's personality without the alcohol, a constant need for conflict, a drive for retribution instead of results. Folks, I've worked with Republicans and Democrats my whole life. We didn't always agree, Lord knows we didn't, but there was a level of respect for the institution. You didn't govern by trying to get even. You governed by trying to get things done for. The guy working the line at the factory, or the mom trying to balance her checkbook. And then you've got this Epstein document situation. Today is the deadline. The law says those files need to be out there. For months, we've heard promises about transparency, about draining the swamp. But now that the clock is ticking, we're seeing foot dragging. We're seeing excuses. It makes people angry. And I don't blame them. When you see names being protected or stories being hidden, it fuels the kind of distrust that's like a poison in our democracy. People are reacting with a mix of curiosity and real deep-seated anger. They feel like there's a double standard. One set of rules for the powerful and another for everyone else. That's not the America I know. In the America I know, nobody's above the law. And every citizen deserves to know what their government is doing in their name. We're seeing the soul of our country being tested by this us versus them mentality. It's a strategy of division. And while it might win a news cycle, it loses the future. We deserve a leadership that doesn't make us choose sides every single morning, but instead reminds us that we're all on the same team. Now, let's talk about the people at the center of this. You've got Susie Wiles, the chief of staff. The reports say she's the one trying to keep the lid on the pressure cooker. But even the best lid can't stop the steam from rising when the heat is turned up too high. Then you have the vice president, J.D. Vance, and the budget director, Russell Vought. These aren't just names on a flow chart, folks. These are the people making decisions that affect your health care, your retirement, and the air your grandkids breathe. When I read about the way they're operating, it reminds me of a pattern I've seen before, but never quite like this. It's a philosophy that says power belongs to the few, the connected and the loyal, rather than the many. It's about a government that's being redesigned to serve one man's vision instead of the collective needs of 330 million Americans. I spent a lot of time in that Oval Office, and I can tell you the weight of that chair should make you feel humble. It should make you realize that you're the servant, not the master. But this Vanity Fair report suggests something very different is happening. It describes the White House where the goal isn't necessarily to solve problems, but to win the day's argument. Think about that. While you're worrying about the price of eggs or whether your local school is safe, they're worried about who's winning the latest internal power struggle. It's a waste of energy and it's a waste of the American people's time. We deserve a government that stays focused on the long haul, on building bridges literally and figuratively, not one that's constantly looking for the next person to blame for why things aren't working. I feel the pain of this. I really do. And I've seen what happens when our institutions start to fray at the edges. It's like a house. If you don't take care of the foundation, the whole thing starts to lean. And right now, the foundation of public trust is being shaken. We need to get back to a place where we can trust that. Our leaders are there for the right reasons, not for the cameras, not for the headlines, but for you. That's the better approach I'm talking about in government that works as hard as you do without all the drama. Let's get into this Epstein document situation, because this really gets to the heart of why so many people are feeling cynical right now. For years, there's been this cloud hanging over our justice system, this feeling that if you're rich enough or powerful enough, you can make your secrets disappear. When the House Democrats and even some Republicans started pushing to get those unredacted files out in the way, it gave people a glimmer of hope. They thought maybe, just maybe, the truth is finally going to come out. But here we are at the end of 2025, and it feels like we're watching a game of hide the ball. There's a deadline, the law is clear, yet the administration is hesitating. Why? That's the question everyone is asking. This isn't just about one man or one case. It's about whether we have a fair shake in this country. When people see the government dragging its feet on transparency, it creates a vacuum. And you know what fills that vacuum? Conspiracy theories, anger, and deep-seated distrust. I've always said that the American people are the most resilient people on earth. But you can't keep a society together if people don't believe the system is honest. This push for the Epstein records isn't political theater, as some of the president's supporters claim. It's about basic accountability. If there was wrongdoing, it needs to be seen. If there are names that need to be known, they should be known, period. Protecting the powerful at the expense of the truth is a betrayal of everything this country stands for. You deserve better than a government that treats the truth like a classified secret. You deserve a leader who isn't afraid of what the documents might show. I remember my father used to say, Joey, a job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. Well, the American people are being denied that respect when they're lied to or when the truth is hidden behind a wall of redactions. We need to demand more. We need to remind the folks in Washington that they work for us, not the other way around. That's how we start to heal this division, by proving that the law applies to everyone, from the penthouse to the row house. Folks, when I think about what's being reported in that Vanity Fair piece, the way they describe the inner circle, it honestly breaks my heart. They're talking about a culture of fear. They're talking about people in the highest levels of our government who are more worried about the president's mood than they are about your mortgage or your health care. That's not how a democracy is supposed to function. A White House should be a place where ideas are debated, where the best and brightest come together to solve the biggest problems we face. It shouldn't be a place where everyone is walking on eggshells, wondering who's going to get the axe next. I've been in those rooms. I've sat at that desk. And I can tell you, if you don't have people around you who are willing to tell you no, you're in real trouble. If you only have yes men and yes women who are scared of a boss who values loyalty over the truth, the American people are the ones who pay the price. We're seeing it right now. We see it in the way policies are rolled out and then walked back. We see it in the confusion that ripples through our economy every time a late-night post goes viral. It creates a sense of instability that makes it hard for a small business owner to plan for next year or for a family to feel like the ground under their feet is solid. The report mentions a drive for retribution. Think about that for a second. Retribution. That's a fancy word for getting even. But the presidency isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead together. When leadership is based on who you can punish rather than who you can help, the whole country loses. It turns neighbors against neighbors. It makes us look at each other as enemies instead of fellow Americans. We've had enough of that, haven't we? We've had enough of the shouting and the finger pointing. There is a better way. It's called decency. It's called looking out for the other guy. And it's about understanding that we rise or fall as one nation, not as a collection of factions trying to tear each other down. Now, let's circle back to those documents, the ones the House is fighting to get released. This isn't just about some old files or a case from the past. It's about a fundamental question. Who does the government work for? Does it work for the names in those files, the powerful and the well-connected? Or does it work for the families who just want to know that justice is real? When the administration stalls, when they use every legal trick in the book to keep things hidden, they're sending a message. And that message is, we know better than you. I don't buy that for a minute, not for a single minute. You have a right to know. You have a right to see if the system was rigged. This delay, this scrutiny the president is facing is coming from a place of deep, justified frustration. People are tired of the secrets. They're tired of being told everything is fine when they can see with their own eyes that things are messy. When we talk about the Epstein records, we're talking about the integrity of our legal system. If we can't be honest about that, what can we be honest about? This pattern of secrecy, it links back to everything else we're seeing. It's the lack of accountability that starts at the top and works its way down, is why people feel like the little guy always gets the short end of the stick. If a regular person hides evidence or ignores a deadline, there are consequences. Why should it be any different for the people in the West Wing? It shouldn't. In America, there is no ruling class. There's just us, the people. And the people are demanding transparency. I want you to imagine a government where the first instinct isn't to hide, but to help. Imagine a president who says, here are the facts, even the ugly ones, because I trust you to handle them. And that's the kind of leadership that builds trust. That's the kind of leadership that heals the country. We don't need more tough guy talk. We need more straight talk. We need a return to the basics, honesty, integrity, and the simple idea that the truth will set us free. We deserve a leader who isn't afraid of the light, because they know that's the only way we can ever truly move forward as a nation. Folks, let's talk about what happens when the people closest to the president start talking. This week, we saw something you don't see every day. The White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, the person who sees it all, gave a series of interviews that really pulled the mask off. She didn't just talk about policy. She talked about the people running the show. And let me tell you, what she said is enough to give any American pause. She described the president as having an alcoholic's personality, even though he doesn't drink. She's talking about an obsessive, addictive way of handling power. Think about that for a second. The person in charge of our nuclear codes, our economy, and our standing in the world is being described by his own top aide as someone driven by a need for conflict and score settling. It's a culture where the goal isn't to fix the country, but to win the next fight. That's not leadership. That's a soap opera. And you're the ones paying for the ticket. But it didn't stop there. She called the Vice President, J.D. Vance, a conspiracy theorist. She called the Budget Director, Russell Vought, a right-wing absolute zealot. And she described Elon Musk as an odd duck who's been gutting government agencies in a way that left her words aghast. When the Chief of Staff is aghast at how things are being handled, we've got a real problem. This is the inner circle, folks. This is the team that's supposed to be working for you. Instead, they're sniping at each other and admitting that their own policies, like these new tariffs, are more painful than they ever expected. Americans deserve a team that's focused on their lives, not their own internal dramas. We need steady hands, not people who think pushing things too far is the only way to get results. Then there's the news that's really sending shockwaves through Washington. After years of the president calling the Epstein records a hoax and a distraction, his own chief of staff admitted the truth in that same report. She said, we know he's in the file. She confirmed he was on the plane. He was on the manifest. Now look, I'm not here to throw stones just to throw them, but I'm here to talk about the truth. For a long time, the American people were told one thing, while the reality was something else entirely. Right now, as we speak, the Department of Justice is facing a deadline, a legal requirement to release the full, unredacted Epstein files. For months there has been stalling, there have been excuses, but the law is the law. House Democrats have already started releasing photos from the Epstein estate, pictures of world leaders, famous actors, and even people in the president's own circle. These aren't just photos. They're questions that need answers. People are seeing images of things that are deeply disturbing, and they're wondering why it took a little act of Congress to get this information moving. I've always believed that when you hold a public office, you have a duty to be an open book. You don't get to pick and choose which parts of the truth the public gets to see. When the administration drags its feet on something this serious, it sends a message that they're more worried about protecting important men than they are about seeking justice for the victims. It makes the average person feel like the game is rigged. And you know what? When you see this kind of secrecy, it's hard to argue they're wrong. We need to get back to a place where transparency isn't just a buzzword we use during a campaign, but a way of doing business every single day. That's the only way to earn back the trust that's been lost. Folks, I want you to think about what this all means for you, for your family, your neighbors, and the town you call home. When you hear about these internal battles over tariffs or the gutting of agencies that make sure your food is safe and your water's clean, it's not just a political headline, it's a choice. This administration is making a choice to put an ideology of conflict ahead of your everyday life. I've seen the plans being drawn up by folks like Russell Voigt. They aren't just about saving a few dollars. They're about shifting the very foundation of how our government works. It's like they're trying to build a system that only answers to the folks at the very top, while everyone else is left to fend for themselves. My dad used to have a saying back in Scrutiny. He'd say, "Joey, don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value." Well, when you look at the chaos inside this White House, it's clear what they value. They value the struggle over the solution. They value the win. In the cable news cycle, more than the work on the assembly line, it's a my way or the highway approach that leaves no room for the common good. We need to remember that the government belongs to you. It's not a plaything for the wealthy or a tool for settling old scores. It's a sacred trust. And right now, that trust is being tested like never before. I feel the weight of it, and I know you do too. It's that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you see the news and wonder if anyone is actually looking out for you. But here's the thing. We don't have to accept this as the new normal. We deserve a government that is as decent, as honest, and as hardworking as the American people themselves. We need to stand up and say that we've had enough of the drama and the divisiveness. We want a country where the goal isn't to tear each other down, but to lift everyone up. That's the America I believe in, and I know it's the America you believe in too. We're coming to the end of 2025, and as we look toward the future, we have to ask ourselves a very serious question. Is this who we are? Are we a country that hides the truth behind redactions and legal delays? Are we a nation that lets the loudest, most cynical voices drown out the needs of the many? I don't believe that for a single second. I know this country. I've traveled every corner of it, and I know the heart of the American people. We're better than the gossip. We're better than the scandals. And we are certainly better than the secrecy we're seeing right now. The push for those Epstein documents and the scrutiny of this administration's inner workings isn't just about the past. It's about making sure our future is built on a foundation of truth. If we can't be honest about what has happened in the halls of power, we can't be honest about where we're going as a people. Transparency isn't a threat. It's a requirement for a healthy democracy. We need to pull back the curtain and let the light in, because the light is the only thing that can heal the divisions we're facing. I've shared a lot with you today, and I know it's a lot to process, but I believe we have to face these facts together if we want to change things. If you stuck with me through this whole story, I want to say thank you. It tells me that you care about the soul of this nation just as much as I do. We can't do this alone. If you found this helpful, please like this video and leave a comment below. I want to hear what's on your mind. Are you tired of the secrets? Are you ready for a better approach? Make sure to subscribe to this channel and become a member of our community. We're building something here based on facts, respect, and the simple belief that America's best days are still ahead of us. If we have the courage to demand the truth, this isn't just my fight. It's our fight for the future of the country we love. Let's keep moving forward together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.